The Let's Talk Forensics with Pastor Dan. We're starting a new concept today, and we're looking at crime scene investigations. So we're going to investigate that crime scene there. That's going to have our yellow tape. So when we have a crime, what exactly is a crime scene? It's an area or region where crime was committed. Now, there are generally two types of crime scenes. The first type is called the primary. If that's where the crime actually took place. If there's a murder, the body's there, the murder took place in the same place, that's a primary. If it's a robbery, exactly where the robbery took place. Second would be a secondary. If there was a body dumped, if somebody took and killed somebody but then packed the body and moved it someplace else, there would be a secondary. A secondary crime scene would be like if it's a hideout from a robbery. Those are the ideas we have between primary and secondary crime scenes. Now, when it comes to initially investigating the situation, the first thing we need to do is to secure and isolate. That's that yellow tape they put everywhere. No one's allowed behind that except for the investigators involved. We do that primarily for security and to prevent tampering. Now, once we have it secured, we're going to record the scene. That's when you use your lab notebook again, okay? We're going to sketch the situation out thoroughly. And we want to make sure to take all appropriate measures. So we're going to have tape measurers out there. We're going to make how far this is from that and be able to match it up. Include all relevant evidence. Anything that we find in the scene that we mark, we photograph, we're going to include in our sketch so that way we can represent it later. We'll also take photographs. We take a bajillion photographs. I heard of a case one time where they took a photograph. It didn't seem like a whole lot of time, but it inadvertently got a skid mark. And the skid mark proved that the person had tried to stop, and it wasn't a homicide. It was an accident. And without that skid mark, the person could have been convicted. We take scale measures. We take two rulers and put them at angles from each other. That we have idea how big things are. And we take various lights and various angles. We may take 4, 5, 6, 7 pictures of the same thing just to see if there's any details that we miss. So those are the things we do as we investigate the crime scene. Now, when we do sketches, there are two kinds of sketches we do. We do a scale model for drawing a testament, and we do a rough sketch. So rough sketch is what we do in the notebook, so we get some idea what it looks like. The person's got some really good skills here. And then we do a scale model later, usually with graph paper, so we get exact measurements, exact dimensions, sizes, make it look correctly. We're going to do a 3-day lab coming up here where you're going to have a chance to set up your own crime scene, but then also do some of these sketches and some of those representations as well. All right, now in terms of searches, there are finally 4 different types of searches that we can do. The first is called a spiral. In a spiral search, we start at the top, outside, we roll all the way around till we get to the center. Every time we get to a piece of evidence, we stop, we placard it, we take a picture of it, we put scales on it, and we move on to the next piece of evidence. So that way we identify everything. If we need to collect it, we do the same thing. Start the same pattern, all the way around, pick it up, put it in a sealed bag, make sure it's secured, dust for prints, same pattern, spiral in that way. Second way we can do it is a grid. When they had the Wayne Gacy case, underneath his house, he had buried many young men. So what they did is they cordoned off the bottom of his house. They pulled all the floor up. They would identify squares. They would dig down the squares. They would identify the body parts that were there, grid pattern in that way, so that way they can know exactly which was each section of the house. If we get larger areas, we can do line and strip. It's a lot like spiral, but because it's a larger area, it stretches out following the same pattern till we get to that center. And the last one, back up, wrong way, is quadrant and zone. This is like, there was a case where they had found a skull that was brought out. And so what they did is they put out quadrants because it's on a mountain. A person had killed a young female hiker, and they dumped the body there. Well, of course, scavenger animals started to pull the animal apart, and so they wanted to go through and identify each part, put the body back together from forensics through forensic investigator, we identify who the height, weight, be able to do facial reconstruction, things along those. So it's like grid, but it's on a bigger scale. All right, now, types of evidence collected, things that we need to always remember. First, we're going to take all the victim's clothes. We don't know anything that might be in there. There might be your blood. It might be someone else's blood on there. There might be gunpowder residue, all those kinds of things. We're going to take those clothes, bag them, and then test them individually. We're going to scrape underneath the fingernails of the victim. The reason for that, a lot of times people fight back. We might get DNA underneath there, might get fibers, things along those lines. Third thing to collect, hair collection. If there's any hair at all on the person, we're going to record that. It could be the assailant's hair, and you may or may not be able to get DNA. We'll talk about that in a later video, but we're going to collect it so we can identify. It could be a dog hair as opposed to human hair, things along those lines. For blood collection, if there's any blood, make sure we collect all of those samples. Evidence of a sexual, it's called an SAE, sexual assault kit. What we do usually, that's a very, very sensitive thing. We make sure that usually only females work with females because we want to be very sensitive about that. Photographs are taken. Any biological evidence, semen, things along those lines, all of that is recovered and used for testing later time. Bullet recovery, casings, if there's the projectile itself, both of those, we make sure we get each of those because we get the striations and identify gun type, the ejection, identify the gun type, identify if we can match exactly to the bullet and the gun, and then swab for hands for GSR. GSR stands for gunshot residue. I always like to tell a story. What they're basically looking for when they're swabbing the hands is for nitrates, because nitrates are what is used in gunpowder and explosives. I had a trip I took one time to Florida. As we were coming back, I was chosen for increased scrutiny. I don't know if I looked sketchy or whatever, but they did swab my hands. And I'm glad I was coming back home, not going down to Florida, because I teach or taught chemistry, and I would always have nitrates on my hands as I would be setting up labs. I was coming back. I didn't have time for it to come off my hands. Otherwise, I might have some explaining to do why I had nitrates on my hands. All right, so those are the different pieces of evidence that we need to collect up. All right, now this last thing, we've already gone over this, but I want to make sure this is emphasized because this is really, really important. It's evidence collected in sealed bags, evidence where it's identified where it's collected, who collected it, and again, this is a big deal because they'll often go after that person, go after their integrity, their training, see if they can produce reasonable doubt inside of a jury whether or not they actually did what they said they did. Written record of all tests that are done on evidence. Reference samples also taken, so that way we have something that can be compared, and that's what we have. All right, that's it for today. Take care. God bless. Bye.